Okay, good morning, everyone. Last week we have gone over the telephone systems, and we went over something that I call telephone systems that are conventional, which means systems that are it's a physical equipment, physical box, as I call it, that is basically installed in the facility that at hand, like offices, production plant, and whatnot. All right. Now, as the technology advances, by the way, this is March 3rd, 2025, our network cabling class. In case somebody watches this thing, 10 years from now, because it's so valuable. There you go. So as the technology advances, the phone systems are not falling behind. So there about, I would say, about 10 years ago or 9 years ago, something like that, the VoIP telephone systems started really taking over our planet. And the reason for that is, well, the technology is advanced, right? So you get more possibilities, more features, and we will talk about those. And the biggest perhaps reasoning for that, the biggest incentive for companies to actually dish out a lot of money to switch to VoIP systems from the phone systems that are already working, nothing wrong with them. The big incentive is the cost. You can cut the cost by about 3. So if you have a small business consisting of 2 or 3 phones, you might see some, well, actually you will see some savings. However, if you have a company that has 800 phones and you have a branch like that in, let's say, London, Ontario, where we are, and then you have another branch in China somewhere that also is just as big, and then you have another branch somewhere in the United States that is just as big, and maybe one more in Africa, then the costs of, if you cut the cost by 3 when it comes to the phone systems or paying the bills, then it makes it significant. Right? So that's probably the main reason people are switching. But also is just to keep up with the technology that that keeps advancing on us. It's just that type has it like that. All right. Okay. So let's take a look at something that is called a VoIP. All right. Now, let me start the presentation. VoIP. All right. What's the idea? What's the big idea about VoIP? Well, first of all, the phones look quite more modern, and they do have more features or better organized features than just a regular proprietary telephones. And VoIP stands for Voice over Internet Protocol. Well, it's a phone system that utilizes internet for its connectivity. Okay. Just like the IP cameras, you probably heard, we haven't talked about those yet. They are not those regular analog cameras. They are Internet Protocol cameras that utilize the Ethernet connection, and that's it. And the Ethernet also gets the power. The cable conveys the power as well as the signal. IP cameras, IP phones, but the IP phones, we call them VoIP. Okay? All right, the concept. What is the concept of that? Ooh, yeah, I get dizzy. Private Branch Exchange, PBX, is a telephone system that is installed locally, and we talked about that last week. It's a box that it's a miniature, it's almost like a miniature central office. If there is a branch exchange or local branch exchange that is servicing, well, certain neighborhood or a few neighborhoods at once, It's a local branch exchange from the telephone company, and usually it's a small building somewhere. Usually there's no one there, it's just the whole equipment just works by itself. Sometimes you are going to get a human there to do little service work or whatnot, okay? Now, the private branch exchange is a miniature version of that that is installed locally, meaning in the building, all right? As a system, it's installed locally as a system that serves a closed facility, usually in a commercial environment such as office building or production plant, and so on. The purpose of PBX is to provide locally distributed telephone sets to individual clients, well, would be the office workers and, and such, in a way that the, excuse me, in a way that the end users, which will be the people who are sitting at the desktops, they should be able to call each other internally without the need to select outside lines. Well, pretty basic feature. Perform audio paging. Use telephone sets to communicate with the outside world. Receive outside calls directed by either the reception operator, which would be a human answering the phone, or automated routing system or routing system, depending where you are in the world. It's a preference of the client. Sometimes the choice is one or the other. And what the end users can also do, use the designated voicemail. They can have voicemail boxes. Is this thing coming to an end? I wrote that. The users can transfer calls to the end users, and they can utilize something that's called conference call. What's a conference call? A conference call is a telephone call that involves more than two parties, right? More than two people. Or use and benefit from other locally enabled system features. And as far as that, now, if you're installing or selling this type of a phone system, such as VoIP phone system, for example. Now, the conventional, you may have those features, and some of them might be enabled, some of them might be disabled. But if you want to enable a certain kind of feature, like I want to enable voicemail, you're going to get a technician there to set it up, and you're going to, the client's going to pay for it once, and the client's going to use that voicemail forever and ever. But when it comes to VoIP, things are being built slightly different. Usually the companies who install VoIP telephone systems, they bill by the feature. So so if you want to have a phone system that is going to be equivalent of having 50 telephone lines, the equivalent meaning is that you don't get the physical telephone lines pulled into your building. You are utilizing Ethernet or internet, certain type of bandwidth from the internet designated to have the equivalent of 50 telephone lines. So you pay per line. Well, nothing different. But you pay, one SIP line, it's called SIP line, SIP, Session Initiation Protocol, and we'll talk about that, costs about 3 times less, or one telephone line divided by 3, that's the cost. So here's the cost, huge cost savings for the client. However, when it comes to phones, a lot of companies will sort of like lease the phones. Oh, how many phones do you want? Oh, we want 25 phones. Okay, so it's going to be so and so per phone per month. What features do you want? Oh, you want paging enabled? The ability to page? Yes, we want. Okay, so that's going to be so and so per month. You want the voicemail? How many voicemail boxes would you like? Oh, there's so many. Okay, it's going to be so much money per voicemail box per month. Get the idea? Any kind of little feature that you want to enable. That's how the companies make money. So the cost becomes a little bit more than 1/3 of the telephone lines, but still it's a win-win situation because the client is saving still a huge amount of money, and the installer company or the provider company who's taking care of that VoIP telephone system, they also can make money. Now, if you are in the business of networking, you can also, quite often what happens is that people who install the VoIP telephone systems, sometimes they ask to service the whole network. And sometimes the client says, yes, yeah, okay, we need somebody to, because, we got Jerry here that sometimes he has time, sometimes he doesn't, and we do have needs as far as, servicing our network. Yeah, we would like that service. So, that's a business opportunity for people like us who are in the business of telecommunications. VoIP versus what would be the differences as far as VoIP versus the conventional telephone systems or private branch exchanges? There are some. Some of them are more significant than others. Let's see here. All right, let's take care of some definitions here, just so we are on the same page. Definitions. PBX stands for Private Branch Exchange, and we already talked about that about 3 minutes ago. CO or CO line, central office telephone line, it's POTS line. Okay. Now, VPN, virtual private network, which is a designated bandwidth on the internet that is secure to certain individual who pays for it, or a company that pays for it. So all the businesses that are, especially those chain businesses, I'm talking everyone, talking Walmart. Walmart has many stores around the world. Okay, McDonald's has many stores around. Anybody, right? So they those companies, they purchase their own VPN, and the whole network of all the stores that are in the whole world that they own, they are tapped into that virtual private network that's proprietary just to them, right? And so it's almost like making a local area network out of all the stores and devices that are in them that you own that are connected to the VPN. Almost, it almost works like a local area network. So it's, kind of an interesting concept, right? Now, here is that thing here. SIP. Now, do I have, yeah, I have the primary rate interface. We were talking about that last week, okay? All right. SIP, or SIP line. It is a session initiation protocol. That's what the acronym stands for. All right, what does that mean? When there is any kind of a connection between, your PC, and by the way, the VoIP telephone set, it pretty much acts like a miniature PC, except it just doesn't have, it maybe has a different type of monitor, it's just a little display. And it has some other things that PC doesn't, like a headset and a keypad that looks like a telephone. But it pretty much works as a PC. So, when you're connecting, let's say you have a situation like this. You want to find out about giraffes. Okay? So, you go, you fire up your browser on your PC, and in the search window, you type giraffes. All right. Let's say you're Googling that. You fire up Google, and in the Google search, you type giraffes. What happens after you press, go or enter or, any kind of like a do it kind of a thing button? Well, your PC is going to make a connection with some sort of a Google server that is somewhere around your area. That could mean it could be actually in a different city. Who knows, right? But there are many Google servers that. So what happens is that your PC is establishing a session, just making a connection with a Google server, which exists somewhere. Could be in the same city, could be in a different city, could be in a different country. That making a connection to that Google server is called establishing a session. And then your browser is going to prompt that server, well, give me any list of topics that involve giraffes. And that Google server says, yeah, I have some information here locally. And by the way, I'm going to contact all other Google servers to see if they have more, So then boom, your list comes up on your screen. So that's how it's, the idea of establishing a session. Now, in a primitive way of establishing a session, you pick up a phone, you dial up the phone number of your friend, and then your friend picks up, says hello, kaboom, you have established a session, you have established a connection. So the word session is just like establishing a connection. So by the same way, when you pick up the VoIP phone, the internet phone that connects to Ethernet, to your network, you pick up the headset, you dial either the extension number that is local to your company or dial an outside number. You are establishing a session with another telephone set. The session is between your telephone set and another telephone set through whatever channels and links they have to do. So you don't even think about that, but one thing contacts the other, the red thing is connected to the blue thing, and so on, okay? Bunch of networks connect together. So session initial SIP line is just like a CO line, but it's not a physical line. It's the bandwidth allocated, the bandwidth from the internet that is allocated for that for your conversation. There are different bandwidths, like for example, the human voice usually goes from, the human hearing is usually from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. If you are really young, you could probably hear your ears are going to register 20 kilohertz. As we get older, we tend to lose the higher end, so we hear less of the higher frequencies. Human voice is a little bit less than human hearing, and I'll have to Google that to give you the exact numbers. So sometimes some of the companies, of the VoIP companies, they will really skim the bandwidth per each channel. So that's why sometimes the conversation that you're having, it sounds nice and clear because they are not cheaping out on the bandwidth. They're giving enough internet space for that one channel. And sometimes they're basically dialing it down so it's just enough so the human voice can be understood, which sometimes manifests itself as a little glitch here and there, and maybe the voice is quieter and maybe not as understood as it should be. Right? So a SIP is an equivalent, it's an internet bandwidth or internet location, internet space equivalent to a CO line. The more lines you order, the more internet you're going to use. The more internet content, the more internet bandwidth you're going to use that's allocated to you. So, in short, SIP line is a telephone line, but it's a digital telephone line, not POTS anymore. And for SIP lines, you don't need to install physical wires. You are just allocating part of the internet service for the phone usage. So that's as far as definitions. I try to kind of be as detailed as I can, but I can't spend the whole class lesson on this. If you have sometimes it's a concept that is challenging to grasp if you're not in business for some time. So if you still have trouble with that, well, contact me and I'll explain it to you. All right, PRI, primary rate interface. That's what primary interface is. Okay, it's a one physical line or connection. Well, that physical line consists of two pairs, right? And what we're using frequency division multiplexing. So the telephone lines are modulated onto those two pairs, and one pair is using as a transmit pair, and the other pair is being used as a receive pair. So basically one pair conveys the signal one way, and the other pair conveys the signal the other way. And because of modulation is being used, in North America, the T1 can use up to 30 simultaneous phone calls on those two pairs. It's an end-to-end digital circuit. One PRI consists of two copper pairs, one transmit, one receive. Modem is required to fan out those lines into physical connections or physical contacts. And multiplexing is used to carry multiple channels over one line. Each PRI channel bandwidth involves 64 kilobits per second. All right, 64 kilobits per second speed. And just as just a reminder, when we are talking about the speed of the data, we're talking about not kilo. Well, could be kilo, could be mega, could be giga. All right, but we're talking bits per second when you're talking about speed of data transfer. When we're talking about storage, we're talking bytes, and of course, there is no per second because if you have something stored on your hard drive, so many bytes or kilobytes. What else do we have here? Two common types for the PRIs, right? So there's a T1 that is used in USA and Canada. So so in the States, in Canada, we don't have 30 simultaneous. In T1, we have in USA and Canada, we could have up to 23 or 24 channels on that two pairs. Now in Europe and in India, we have E1, and that one is able to carry 30 simultaneous telephone calls. Right? So it's slightly different. So so that's a primary rate interface. It was the primary rate, the PRI. It's like a preceder to the VOIP idea. When you install the VOIP system, then there's no really need to have PRI anymore, except maybe there's some specific reasons that you want. The PRI was invented for the purpose of eliminating the physical lines that you need to have installed. And modem is required for PRI because modem, what does modem stand for? Mo stands for modulation, dem stands for demodulation. Right? So it modulates and demodulates back and forth. So you have like a scrambled signal that carries, let's say 23, is able to carry 23 telephone conversations. And that hits the modem, and the modem demodulates that, and it basically sets those channels into physical connections that can be connected to the phone system as simulated POTS lines, plain old telephone service lines. That's what, more or less, this is what the PRIs look like. This is a modem for one PRI. Here's a modem for another PRI. And from there, so that the PRI is connected, just like a data signal, into the network somewhere, or it's connected to the central office from the telephone provider. And on the other side, you have cables coming out, or connections that are going to be wired in to the big frames as each individual line. So it's like 24, look, about 24, 23 channels. So that one of those modems would fill up almost the whole wafer of the BICs, because it has capability of 25 pairs, right? Right. Right. So that's, when you see that kind of stuff, that's a PRI. Okay, let's go back. Back is going back. All right. So that's this screen. We had the definitions first. Now, here is this little guy here. Conventional PBX versus VoIP telephone system. Conventional PBX has a locally distributed telephone sets, and so does VoIP. That's the whole idea, to have telephones on people's desks. So no difference here. Okay, internal calls within the local facility. If you want to call outside, you have to select an outside POTS line to connect to some outside client. Now, if you have, if you belong to the same company, like there's a branch in London, and there is another branch of the same company, let's say Windsor, Ontario, or Toronto, then in order to call somebody in that office in the different city that belongs to the same company, then you have to select an outside line, dial the number, make a connection, and then you're talking. That's with the conventional PBX. Now VoIP changes the game altogether. It's a game changer comparing, with reference to the conventional PBX. Internal calls within local facility. Okay, so that's no different here. And other facilities within the same VPN. So when those companies, well, there's a company that has two branches, one in London here, one in Toronto, and they both belong to the same, are logged into the same VPN, virtual private network. You can just dial the extension number of the person who is in a different city that belongs to the same VPN, and it's considered as a, well, it's a local call. It's considered actually internal call, not even selecting outside line type of a call. So if you're in London in your office, and there's another branch of the same company, that is in a different country or in a different continent, and if they are logged into the same VPN, the networks are logged into the same VPN, then there's no long distance charges. No long distance charges. That call is considered just as, there's no difference between calling an office, somebody who sits in the office on a different continent, and calling somebody who sits in the next cubicle next to you. So here is another big incentive for people to switch to VoIP, because the long distance charges they just drop. There's no long distance charges. If, of course, if you're calling the same company, or whoever is logged into the same VPN, virtual private network. Now let's see here. Conventional CO lines to dial out. Well, in VoIP we use SIP lines, used to communicate with the outside world. Okay. Now, here's another difference. In PBX, you always have local PBX equipment in conventional telephone systems. You always have that physical box installed somewhere that serves as a telephone system. Now, when it comes to VoIP, you can go either way. You can still have that physical box that is going to just work a little bit differently. One is sort of digital, and the other one is sort of analog. So you can have a physical VoIP telephone system box installed in your facility, or you can have a hosted service. We're going to talk about hosted service. What is a hosted service? Well, there's a company in Montreal that provides VoIP telephone service. And the company in Montreal, for example, will have their sales department doing cold calls and selling the VoIP telephone system. And they'll offer their hosting. So you are not going to have to install any physical equipment that serves as a telephone system. You can have the option of doing that, or you can have a hosted service that all the telephones, they connect to the network switches, and that's all they connect to. There's no physical box that says it's a phone system in the facility. And all the connections, the network connections, just like a PC or anything else, it connects as just one more node to the network, except they are programmed to have a different routing to connect with different things. Where does it connect? Well, it connects to the VPN system, VPN, Virtual Private Network, and it has programming to make a connection to the server that is in Montreal. Now, when you're trying to call your friend who sits in the office just on the other side of the wall that you're sitting, the phone call goes to the network, goes to the server in Montreal, comes back to your network, and is connected to your friend who is sitting at the desk near you. And it's considered as an internal call. All right? Same thing. If you want to call somebody who is belongs to the same VPN, if you want to call the same company that acts as one, and the other office is in China. So your phone call goes through the network, goes to the server in Montreal, and that server in Montreal connects to the server in the facility in China, and you make a connection, and it's also considered as internal call. Right? So that's the big difference between conventional and VoIP. All right. SIP. We talked about that. Let's just kind of reinforce that knowledge here. SIP is a standard protocol for internet-based communication, including telephony, video, messaging, and conferencing. So, Session Initiation Protocol Line. SIP trunking. SIP trunking makes it possible to connect PBX to Internet, enabling business communications without using of the PRI lines. Trunking. You can substitute this word with grouping. Session initiation, SIP lines grouping makes it possible. So basically you have the bandwidth of so many bits per second. From the low end to the high end, so much bandwidth is going to give you enough bandwidth to have 50 simultaneous conversations on that one internet connection. If you need more bandwidth for more SIP lines, you just request that from your provider. And yes, each SIP line will have its own telephone number. Right? So we already talked about that. Local PBX versus hosted routing. Okay. Just reinforcing what we just talked about. Let me check the time. We're good. A physical hardware, okay, local PBX, right? A physical hardware placed in the facility at hand, okay? All telephone connections home run, like the lines, they home run to the cross-connect points and they are distributed around the facility, or all the telephone sets connect to the computer network and then interface with the local box, with the local PBX. And then you have all the control of the of programming of the phone system. In some cases you want to have it one way, in some cases you want to have it the other way. It depends on the deal that you get. Now, all system connections are connected. Okay, so here's the difference. Sorry, let me go back to this one here yet. Telephone set connects to the computer. Okay, all telephone connections home run. So all the lines are connected to that box from every phone. They're plugged into that box. Or the phones are plugged into the network switch or network, and that box, physical box, that is the phone system, VoIP phone system, mind you, is also plugged into the network, and it is set up so all those phones act as if they were directly connected to the PBX or the KSU. All system connections are connected to the PBX directly through the computer network. Okay, I kind of lost myself here. So they go home run or to the network, and then all system connections are connected to the PBX directly, which is what I just said here, or to the computer network. Internal calls are routed through the PBX, so they don't go outside, they just go through that box that is physically installed. All outside calls are routed to the CO lines or the SIP lines through the locally installed PBX. So that PBX could be conventional or could be VoIP. Okay. Now, hosted routing. There is no local box on site. All telephone sets are connected to the computer network, period. That's it. That applies only to VoIP. Right? All calls are routed through the hosting client, which I explained, that Montreal example. The hosting client hardware can be installed locally. It could be, also it could be, your location could be chosen as the main one, or it could be in the same city, by meaning locally, or it could be anywhere in the world. So that's the possibilities for selling the phone systems or the service just expands. Right? Connections to the hosting client are established through VPN. We established that already. All connections between the end users are treated as internal calls if they are within the same VPN. Right? We also went over that. This means that the call between London, Ontario, and let's say Hong Kong, it's treated as internal call if within the same VPN. So huge cost savings here. Here is the difference between locally. This could be conventional or VoIP. This could be here. This also only goes for the VoIP systems. How are things being connected? Well, do we have the previous picture? No. So I would encourage you to look at the previous picture of the previous presentation with the conventional phone systems. Things like all those phones connect to the box that is called PBX or KSU, Key Service Unit or Key System Unit, a phone system, a box that's called phone system. And then things are being connected as they need to be connected to the outside world, to the, either phone lines or whatnot. Now, over here with VoIP, all the phones, they connect right to the patch panel. They're part of the network. just like any other PC, just like any other wireless access point, just like any other IP camera, and anything that connects to the network. This is just one more thing we're connecting to the network. And from there, we're patched to the switch. Now, the switch could be designated because usually the switches have to have PoE capabilities. What's PoE? PoE is power over Ethernet. So that means from that port of the switch, you plug into the patch panel, and that patch panel has a connection to the phone. That port is supplying to that phone a signal, as well as over some wires, the power is provided to that phone. So you don't have to have any external transformer or a power supply to plug into the phone so the phone works, because the phone needs power to operate. And then from there, that switch could be connected to router, modem, whatever it's the IT department or the IT person sets up. Basically, it needs to be connected to some device that makes a connection to the outside world. And of course, the router or the routing system that is basically installed on site, it will have to have the capability of VPN connections. And then that connects to the cloud or the internet. Connections topologies when it comes to VoIP. You can have a dedicated connection that goes to the network. The VoIP phone system connects to the network that has a separate home run wire that goes to the patch panel and then goes to the switch and so on. And then in the same office, you will have another connection to the network that your PC is being plugged in. However, when it's all business driven, all money making opportunities driven, the more convenient equipment you make, the easier it is for you to sell it, right? All right. So the companies who were producing the VoIP telephone systems and the companies were selling them say, okay, it would be a good idea if when some big client already has some phone system established and working, it would be easier for them to make a decision if they didn't have to run or make too many physical changes that they have to pay for. So this has been established. You are connecting it inline. That is possible as well. You can have this, nothing wrong with that. But you can also have this, and there's also nothing wrong with that. You can put the phone inline with your PC. So all you have to establish is that the client has an Ethernet connection or computer connection in their room, in their office, excuse me. Need a sip of coffee. And what do they say? Bob's your uncle? Not quite. You just have to make sure and listen to this very carefully right now. The type of cable that goes between the jack and the patch panel in the communications room or communications closet or LAN room, it has to be Cat 5 minimum. It will work with Cat 5. Sorry, again, it has to be Cat 5e minimum, not Cat 5. It will not work on Cat 5. Cat 5 doesn't have enough bandwidth to carry VoIP signal. Cat 5e, and in one of those lessons, I'm going to give you the differences between the different categories of the cables. The specifications. It needs to have Cat 5e cable. It will work on Cat 5e. It will work on any other category that's up from there. So it will work on Cat 6. It will work on Cat 6e. It will work on Cat 6a, 7, and so on. But minimum, it has to be Cat 5e. So when you're doing a survey, and by the way, survey is when you send a technician or you go there yourself to do the reconnaissance, just to see what's what and what's where, and what needs to be done for the new phone system, the VoIP phone system, to be installed. So you're going to pay attention to what wiring is existing in that facility. You can see it less and less right now, but still you can see some of the old Category 5 cables still running, and when the speed is not of the essence, sometimes those Cat 5 cable are still there in some of the old facilities, and you just have to make sure that you tell the client, okay, those wires that are going to those offices, there's I can see that there's a bunch of like maybe 34 wires that are going. These are Cat 5. They will not convey the phone. Your phone system is not going to work. The VoIP is not going to work on that. So those 37 or whatever wires, they need to be replaced with minimum Cat 5e or Cat 6 right now, right? And you're connecting things in line. You unplug the PC from the already established connection, and you put phone in between it. So you run things into the phone and out of the phone into your PC, and that connection is going to work even if you, if you have the PoE port, then no problem, because the PoE is going to transfer power to this phone. But if that switch doesn't have a PoE, then you're going to have to use external transformer to plug into the phone to power it up. But those things are made in such way that the inline connections in the phones is, even if you unplug the power supply from the phone to power it up, it will still convey the signal to the PC. Very common in department stores, cash registers, or POS stands for point of sale locations. If you work in large department stores, in a lot of cash registers, POS stations, you will see that type of connection. You see a VoIP phone, but if you look at the connections, that is plugged into the network, and from there it plugged into the PC, which is the cash register, which is a PC with a drawer for money, and a little slightly different keyboard and slightly different display. This is how things are being connected. So, for example, here are two network connections here, and one of them is going to actually be labeled as input, the other one is output. So you're going to have to, depending on what phone you got in your hands, you're going to have to look where to plug things in. And there's some other peripherals that, a handset can be plugged in and so on. So you can just read through all that. Now, okay, we're gonna go a couple minutes over, so you know the drill, right? You can go if you need to, or you can stay, or you can catch it on YouTube later on, the end of it. All right, how are we going to connect things like paging interface? Because if you have if you have new installation, then you just install the speakers yourself. But sometimes you are doing a retrofit that the PA system is already working. You're just disconnecting that from the existing conventional phone system, and you're plugging it into the the VoIP system. But the VoIP system, if it's hosted, especially if it's hosted, where do you plug it in? I mean, to the network doesn't have like additional audio jack or something like that. Well, you plug in things through the ATA adapter. Remember those? Analog telephone adapter. And every company, every system will have their own proprietary ATA adapters. The purpose of the ATA adapter is to understand the telephone system's signal, whatever it is. It's to pretend it's a phone connected and convey the signal or transfer the signal or transform the signal into pods. Because paging interface that could be existing already, it wants to see the pods signal, and we already talked about that. So basically, ATA adapter is going to connect to the network, pretending it's a phone. It will have its own phone extension. You dial that, and it can be programmed so it produces a ring signal. Remember, negative 48 volts DC with 90 volts peak-to-peak riding on that. It is going to send that signal right into the pods jack of the paging interface, and the paging interface is going to respond in whichever way it is programmed to respond. It could be just giving you a confirmation tone for you to speak, and you'll be heard over the speakers. Or after the confirmation tone, you have to press which zone you want to page, or do you want to do all call. All right, and so that's how things are being connected. And any other peripherals, like a single line telephone set, you need an ATA adapter. A door station, you need an ATA adapter. A truck driver's entrance push button type of a device, communicating device, which basically is called a door station. You need an ATA adapter to connect to that. Lobby phone, again, it's a single line telephone set, just a pod set. You need ATA adapters. So those are solution to a lot of things. Right? Suggested video links, watch those. Okay, once you download that, and I will, as soon as I finish this, I'm going to make that presentation visible and ready for you to download from our FOL server. Okay, all right. So that's it for today, and I will see you when I see you. Please watch the patch panel, and this is for the 2025 class network cabling. Please watch that next lab video. The link to it is already posted. All right, and the lab sheets are already posted as well. So I'll see some of you during the lab and some of you in the next theory class. Thank you so much and have a great rest of the week. Okay, I need to stop and goodbye.